Hey gang, and welcome back. Just a reminder, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com. You'll get 10% off orders over $10 and help with the channel at the same time. It is Monday, my friends, and that means another EDH gameplay video. This week, Matt is playing his Seizan deck and keeps a hand with Myriad Landscape, 2 Swamps, Crypt of Agadeem, Mirage Mirror, Animate Dead, and Bloodchief Ascension. I am playing Trostani, and I keep a hand with Plains, Forest, Wall of Blossoms, Wood Elves, Phyrexian Processor, Mimic Vat, and Tectonic Edge. Synergy Mike is playing his Jenara deck and keeps a hand with Prairie Stream, Scattered Groves, Yavimaya Coast, Skyshroud Claim, Trigon Predator, and Orin Viper. Lastly, Pat wants to show off his Shirei deck since the last game wasn't so great, and he keeps a hand with 3 Swamps, Stratascythe, Blade of the Bloodchief, Vendetta, and Giant Scorpion. I win the die roll, and I start us off. For the first land of the game, I play a Forest and pass. Mike plays a Prairie Stream. Pat plays a Swamp and casts Blade of the Bloodchief. Matt plays a Myriad Landscape and passes turn. I play a Reliquary Tower and I cast Wall of Blossoms. I then draw a card as it enters and pass to Mike. Mike plays a Scattered Grove and passes. Pat plays a Swamp and casts a Mirror Sire. Matt plays a Crypt of Agadeem and passes turn. I play a Forest and cast Wood Elves, going to find a Temple Garden and pass to Mike. Mike plays a Yavimaya Coast and loses 1 life to pay for the double green and Orin Viper. Pat plays another Swamp and I dig the matching basics, and he swings his Mirror at Matt for 1. In Pat's second main phase, he pays 3 to cast Giant Scorpion and passes. Matt plays a Swamp and passes for his turn. I play a Plains and I cast Trostani. I then pass to Mike. Mike plays an Island, and he swings his Viper at Matt. With the Viper connecting, Mike gets to draw a card. In Mike's second main phase, he casts Skyshroud Claim to go and find 2 Forest cards. Pat plays a Swamp and casts a Viscera Seer. He puts the Blade of Bloodchief onto the Seer, and moves to combat, swinging the Mirror at Matt for 1. Matt plays a Swamp and cracks his Myriad Landscape in his main phase before passing turn. I play Tectonic Edge for my turn, and I cast a Blade of Selves. I then put the blade into my Wood Elves, and swing it at Mike. This has me gaining 2 tokens and gaining 2 life before going to find 2 Forest cards. Matt and Mike take 1, while Pat blocks it with his Scorpion. With the token dying, Pat gets a trigger from his blade and puts 2+1/+1 counters onto a Viscera Seer. Mike plays an Evolving Wilds for his land for turn and drops a Trigon Predator. He then casts a Ground Seal and draws a card as it enters. Mike then casts Steel Sheeper's Gift and finds a Quietus Spike. Mike then swings his Viper at Matt for 1 and mistakenly puts the spike on top of his library. He draws when the Viper connects, but does realize that Gift puts it to his hand, so he draws again. Pat plays a Swamp and brings out his commander, Shirei. He then moves to combat and swings a Viscera Seer at me for 3. I block it with my Wall of Blossoms, and Pat sacrifices his Mirror Sire to his Viscera Seer, gaining 2 more +1/+1 counters from the blade, and getting a Mirror token, and gets a Scry trigger as well. He scries the card to the bottom, and at the end of his turn, he brings back the Mirror Sire. Pat does miss a blade trigger though from my Wall of Blossoms dying. Matt plays a Cabal Coffers as his land for turn and activates it to make 4 mana. He then taps 1 more land to cast Seizan. Matt then casts Bloodchief Ascension and passes turn. At the end of Matt's main phase, Pat sacrifices the Sire again to get another token, Scry, and 2 more +1/+1 triggers on his Viscera Seer. On my turn, I draw 3 and lose 2 life thanks to Seizan. I then play a Plains and I cast Mimic Vat, which is quickly becoming one of my favorite cards in EDH. I then cast Kadama's Reach, grabbing a Forest onto the field and a Plains to my hand. Moving to combat, I swing the Wood Elves at Mike again, gaining 2 more token copies who swing at Matt and Pat. Mike chumps with his Trigon, Pat chumps with his Giant Scorpion again, and Matt chumps with Seizan. Pat puts another 2 +1/+1 counters on the Viscera Seer as he missed the triggers for the other tokens dying, and I have the Wood Elves get imprinted by the Mimic Vat. I pass turn, and Pat sacrifices the Sire once more while Matt puts a counter onto his Ascension. Mike also decides to join in on some action at the end of my turn and sacrifices Evolving Wilds. Mike draws 3 and loses 2 for his turn, and plays a Plains in his main phase. He then casts a Soul Ring and brings out his Quietus Spike. Mike then gears up his Trigon Predator and swings it at Pat. Pat takes 2 points of damage and then loses half of his life. Mike then puts the Trigon Predator trigger on the Blade of the Bloodchief, and before losing it, Pat sacrifices the Sire once more to the Seer. In Mike's second main phase, he casts Jenara and passes to Pat, who returns his Mirror Sire at the end of turn. Also, Matt gains another counter on his Bloodchief Ascension. Pat draws 3 cards and loses 2 life, and plays a Swamp that completely destroys the aesthetic beauty of his matching basics. Pat then casts Abyssal Gatekeeper and sacrifices it to the Seer. With the death trigger on the stack, I activate the Mimic Vat to pop out another Wood Elf's token. I grab a forest, gain 1 life, and finally sacrifice the token. Pat then moves to combat and hits me with his Viscera Seer for 13 points of damage. In his second main phase, he sacrifices the Sire to the Seer and gains a token and passes to Matt. At the end of turn, the Mere Sire and the Gatekeeper get to come back, and Matt also gains another counter on his Ascension and things start to go sideways. Matt plays a Swamp for his turn and activates his Coffer to cast Cage Sun. Matt then passes turn, and Pat responds by sacrificing his Gatekeeper to the Seer, scrying the card to the bottom, and gets drained for 2 by the Ascension. Mike and I sacrifice our commanders, and don't get drained as they go to the command zone instead of the graveyard. Pat decides to sacrifice his Mere Sire, and gets drained for another 2 while also gaining a Mere token. I play a Plains for my turn, and pay 6 to recast Trostani. I then cast a Phyrexian Processor, and I put 20 life into it as it enters the battlefield. With nothing else, I pass to Mike. Mike casts a Hunting Wilds in his main phase, and with the spell in the stack, I activate the Processor. Matt wants to get in on the action though, and he pays 4 life to cast Dismember for 1 colorless mana to kill Trostani. Trostani dies and goes to the command zone, and I gain a 20/20 token, but no life sadly. Mike finds a Temple Garden and a Forest, and with the spell resolving, plays a Temple of Mystery. He scries the top card and keeps it there. Mike then swings the Trigon Predator at me, dealing 2, and then I lose half of my life, dropping to 4. He has the Predator trigger destroy my Processor, and the Bloodchief Ascension drains me for a further 2. In Mike's second main phase, he casts a Lifecrafter's Bestiary and passes turn. Pat plays a Swamp and casts a Liliana's Shade in his main phase to find another Swamp and put it to his hand. He then moves to combat and swings his Viscera Seer at Mike, who takes the hit, and with nothing else, Pat passes turn. For Matt's turn in his first main phase, he activates his Cabal Coffers and casts Kagamaru, First to Suffer. Matt then brings out everyone's favorite zombie, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, and drains each of his opponents for 5. I die as a result of the drain, and Matt gains 15 life. Matt then pays 1 black to sacrifice his Kagemaru, giving all creatures -3/-3. Mike loses his Trigon Predator and gets drained for 2, while Pat sacrifices a Mirror to scry the top card. He keeps it on top and sacrifices his Gatekeeper to make Matt sacrifice his Grey Merchant, but still gets drained for 2. Pat realizes that he's dead anyway though, and just lets Matt gain the drains he would have gotten for his board dying, which would have been another 6 life. Matt then casts a Dark Deal to make everyone discard their hand and draw 1 less than what they had. Mike discards 4 cards, getting drained for 8 life, and draws 3 cards. Mike scries on his upkeep for his Bestiary and keeps it on top before drawing it. He then moves to his main phase and casts Return to Dust, getting to exile both Bloodchief Ascension and the Caged Sun. Mike then recasts Jenara and throws out a Topra Orb to prevent any potential reanimation strategies with Grey Merchant of Asphodel. With nothing else, he passes to Matt. Matt activates his Cabal Coffers in his main phase again, gaining 5 black mana, and casts Megrim. Matt follows this up by casting a Damnation and passes to Mike. Mike draws for his turn and casts Dragonlord Ojutai. He pays the 1 to draw from the Bestiary as they cast the dragon, and then recasts Jenara again before passing turn. Matt plays a Swamp for his land for turn, and using his coffers, recasts Seizan. Mike scries on his upkeep, bottoming the card, and then draws 3 and loses 2 life. This is a lot of gas though, and Mike equips the spike onto Ojutai. Mike then casts a Scythe Claw, and also sticks it onto Ojutai. Moving to combat, he swings it at Matt, who takes 6 life worth of damage, and then loses half of his life, followed by losing half of what was remaining. Mike gets an Ojutai trigger, and keeps 1 card before passing to Matt. Matt draws 3 and loses 2 life. He plays a Swamp in his main phase, and tries to gum up the board further by casting a Painful Quandary. This is all gravy for Matt though, as he's managed to draw an answer, and casts Vraska's Contempt to exile Jenara. Matt gains 2 life, and is able to swing in for exactly lethal with Seizan for the win. Game review time. I think I got a little bit too greedy with my Phyrexian Processor at this game. I was speaking to Trevor after this game, as he was hanging out after having filmed a game before this one, and he likened Magic to a staring contest. This would be good and fine had it not been for the fact that in EDH you also have 2 extra pairs of eyes on you. It probably wasn't my best idea playing the Processor out into Trigon Predator, especially when Pat and Matt had so much removal being in black. Viscera Seer was an incredible enabler in Pat's deck, and it was really sweet to see Shirei go off. He did miss a few Blade of the Bloodchief triggers, but he was still swinging with a 13/13 Viscera Seer, which is big enough. Bloodchief Ascension, when it gets going, drains so much life so quickly for only 1 black mana, and to get it online really doesn't require that much, especially in EDH. This certainly helped Matt out, and he was able to get a nice life padding and was able to withstand several attacks from Mike. Mike's Jenara deck is super sweet, and I love the fact that he was able to put 2 of the Havers on his creature. In that 1 combat swing, he was able to drop Matt by 50 life points. That's crazy! He did know going into that last turn that if Matt drew any kind of removal, he was pretty much dead, but he still had to be aggressive and hope for the best. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.